Oh, jeez. Oh, boy. You know, I think there's a reason why guitar players used to look kind of like this, compared to more modern players today who look a little bit more like this. It's because players today don't have to lug things like this around anymore. They don't want to. But seeing as though I don't fall in either category, $499, $500. Anyways, I'm in the process of revamping my guitar recording and mixing process here in the studio, and I've been evaluating a bunch of new cabinet IRs, and it seems that Mikko2 has arrived just in time. So no word of a lie, I've been in the process of revamping my guitar recording and mixing process here. I recently got a new Engl amplifier, got a new Sur reactive load box. I've been playing around with some modeling with Tonex, featured all of that here on my channel, and even looking at different amp sims and things like that, just looking to shake it up, come up with different combinations, and just have a broader reach into all kinds of new and different tones. Now, one thing that I've been spending a lot of time on recently is been evaluating all sorts of different CAB IR solutions. I've got a couple different CAB packs. Now, if you use CAB IRs, you know the deal. These are a static snapshot of a cabinet in a certain configuration. It takes into account the speaker, the microphone placement, even the environment that it's in, and then you end up with this endless files that you have to sift through until you find the one that works for you. Now, some of these are really, really, really good, but if it comes to tweaking, well, you're kind of locked into what it gives you. Now, some of them give you a ton of options, right? Mic position 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, mic mix, things like that. But if you try to really carve out that tone for yourself that matches that CAB IR with your amplifier source, and I'm talking whether you're using a plugin, whether you're using a modeler, or whether you're using a real amplifier, it doesn't matter. Creating that perfect relationship means you got to get in there and dig in. Now, if you're a set it and forget it kind of guy, there are presets in the Mikko2 plugin. But what I've really enjoyed about Mikko2 in the short time that I've used it is that ability to really tweak it in the mix. I can apply my CAB IR, I can add and subtract microphones, I can move them around, I can even filter things out with the onboard EQ and get it sounding perfect. Now, that track that I showed you just before, there's no post-processing on any of those guitars other than what Mikko2 gives me. Now, some of those guitars were an amp sim, some of them were a model, some of them were a real amplifier. I think that's the point with Mikko2 is you can use it with regardless of what you're using. So let's dig into that track that I recorded. I'm going to show you a couple of parts of that and how I got the different tones matching the different amp sources, and we'll see some of the features of the plugin. All right, let's dive in and check it out. Now, I record direct 99.9% of the time, so I'm always using CAB IRs. I've covered 2 notes on this channel and the Wall of Sound and their Dyna IRs. Lately, I've been getting some modeling with Tonex from IK Multimedia and their speaker technology, the VIR. Is excellent, that works within their platform. But looking for something standalone, I have been on the hunt for some new CAB IRs, and I just happened to see that Mikko2 came out. Now, the way I started using it right away, and this is just like right out of the box, I got it because Mikko2 was designed really around that relationship between the speaker and the microphone, but I like to multi-track. So when I'm multi-tracking, I'm not necessarily looking to have 4 of the best tones. I'm looking to have 4 tones that work together to create one big tone, right? So that means there's some sculpting and some shaping going on. So that's where I have limitations in when using CAB IRs, because now I have to resort to more EQing and getting things to work. So what I found awesome, like right out of the box with Mikko2, was just the ability not only to place that microphone, because we've seen that before, like I said, in other, we'll call three-dimensional CAB IR packs, but combining the EQ and some of the other tweakable options that you have within the plugin allowed me to sort of make those tweaks on the fly, sort of in real time, I should say, and finding the right blends between the different instruments. And I did no other post-processing on these guitars in the example that you heard. I mean, like I said, typically I'll go through a channel strip, I'll use some EQ, I'll bus everything. So I think to me, that's really what the power of this plugin is for me, is sculpting some really, my tones, things that I'm trying to create with, blending different options. I used amp sims, I used amp modeling, I used a real amplifier, I mixed and matched all different speakers, I sculpted it, and came up with what I think is a really, really big sound. And that was really done in one session, and I'm sure I could be able to push this even further the more I get familiar with this plugin. So, all right, so what I'm going to do is let's jump in. I'm going to give you a quick overview of the plugin in case you haven't seen it before, and then I'll show you a couple of little bits of the different guitar tracks and layers that I have here that comprises this one big tone that I've created. And of course, all of the speaker sims are handled by Mikko2, so let's check it out. Mikko2 from ML Sound Lab is a CAB IR suite that runs as a standalone app or as a plugin in your DAW. It comes loaded with all 38 cabinets from Mikko's personal collection and 8 microphones. You can add and layer up to 9 microphones at once. Manipulating the microphone on the speaker is like the real thing. You can hunt around the speaker for the sweet spot, and you can play with the movement controls to refine the mic placement with even more precision. In the phase section, you can reverse the polarity, or you can adjust the phase knob to create interesting effects between the different microphones. And if you're working on a stereo track, you have full pan controls to place your microphones around the stereo spectrum. The feature that really adds incredible value to this plugin is the EQ section. You can build tone, remove harshness, or just get creative. Tweaking mic placement and EQing your tones together in one app helps you get closer to those sounds that you hear in your head. And once you come up with the perfect CAB IR setting, you can export it as a standard CAB IR WAV file to be used in any IR loader plugin or CAB IR loader device. Share your IRs, bring them to other sessions, or load them up in your live rig. Mikko2 is offered for free with one cabinet. You can try it out and make sure it's for you before you choose to upgrade to the full featured version. All right, so let's dissect this guitar tone a little bit so I can show you what I did. How we combined 4 layers of different types of amplifiers, real amp, modeler, and an amp sim plugin. All right, so I've soloed the whole concoction here, so let's take a quick listen to that. So that's 4 different guitars all working together to create one tone, and nice big guitar sound, which I absolutely love. All right, let's take a look at the first pair. The first one here I played with the Les Paul. This is running through my Engl Powerball 2 on the high gain channel. And the second one actually is my Howard Roberts, and we're actually using the ML Plexi from ML Sound Lab. So we're combining a real amplifier with an amp sim, and I really think if you're using amp sims, try to break out of that preset mentality and use sort of different CAB IR pack. This is a great option because we are talking about it today. By the way, I should note that the cabinet that I'm using on the left side is the Mega 412 original. I believe that would be a Mesa cabinet. And on the right side, I'm using the Engl 412, which I believe is an Engl cabinet. Anyways, if you take a look at the two plugin, or the two instances of the plugin, the one in on the left is I paired that with the real amplifier. You can see we've gone with a 57 and we've got a Royer 121 here. Now, the sculpting right here, this is a really amazing part of this plugin, and to be able to move those microphones around while also being able to sculpt your EQ right here at source, I think is the best way to get real definition and articulation out of that combination, right? Now I have a roll off here around 90, about 10K, which is pretty typical. I'm often looking around somewhere around 1K to 2K. I'm often doing some cuts there. I typically find some harshness there, and then a little top end I brought back in here. Again, just a little air on top for the guitar. Now on the DI one, pretty similar curve, but again, I was able to customize it. Now we have a different combination of microphones. So again, we've got a 57 here, a little off center here, and then we've got a 421. Sort of these two working together. I think the 57 being a little closer to the center of the speaker, a little brighter, and the 421 is bringing a little bit of beef to the tone. So let's listen to those two. I'll start off individually, and then I'll bring in the two of them together so you can hear how they're working together. So let's start off with the guitar on the left side. So working together already, especially widening those guitars, pan left and right, is where we start to get that really big, wide-sounding guitar. Now, some other notable tweaks that I used in these two instances of the plugins, we've got the phase. I mean, obviously something phase is something, a big consideration when you're doing it for real. You don't want those microphones out of phase. But sometimes those slight phase differences create some interesting characteristics in the tone. So having that phase adjustment here just allows you to tweak, just to find, again, something interesting, something that really works together. And again, doing this in the mix, I can tweak this while we're listening to the rest of the track, just to hear how it works in context of the rest of the composition. So anyways, definitely some cool other features here to find the right blend. Now, there's two other guitars that are part of this formula, so let's bring those in. So on the left side now, I'm using the Les Paul again, also going through the Engl, but this time the Engl is, I'm using the clean channel. So let's take a listen to that. By the way, without Mikko2. That's raw off the amp. So in this case, I'm using the Marshall 4x12 96 GNR V30, and I'm pairing that with my Sir here on the right side. Now in this case, I recorded direct, and I'm also using the amped ML Plexi plugin. So let's take a listen to that. I'm going to turn off the cab, and then I'll bring it on. So in this case, I'm using another, what is a Marshall 4x12, the PR H75 green. Now again, if you look at the two instances of the plugins, the microphone choices are, well, we're using the 57, which has seemed to have been the standard all the way through. But in this case, I'm using the Ribbon 160, and then on this side, I'm using a condenser 184. Now, if you noticed, in both cases here, they're both closer to the middle. So these two guitar tones, again, were never meant to be heard by themselves, but they're bringing back some top end into the whole tone, right? So again, if we just listen to the two of these together, you'll never hear these in one of my songs like this. But if you look at how I EQ'd them here, brought in a lot more top end, a little bit of bottom in this one, it was a little thin, but I was really focusing on what these two can bring into the top end, the articulation, and then I'm going to blend those in just with the faders just to get them to sit nicely with the other two guitars. So why don't I show you that so you can hear the effect of these two guitars on the other two. So when we take a listen to that in the mix so we can hear the effect on the overall tone in the mix. So the process of getting there, I found it a lot easier doing it this way because I think, just being able to shape those tones and make those changes at source or closer to source is going to give you a lot more definition, a lot more control. Once you've sort of printed that tone and now you're EQing, yes, it works, and I'm not saying you're not going to get great results, but for me, I found in the short time that I've used this plugin is that doing this from source allowed me to get closer and really get those things working well together, because ultimately that is what the goal I've set for myself here and how I like to shape my tones. So having the EQ, having the microphone placement, all going in sort of on the fly, in real time as I'm shaping that, really helped me get that closer together, really get them working together a lot faster than if I was doing it the other way around. And I think the end results were that much better, and it's definitely something I look forward to exploring more down the line. Well, there's my foray into the three-dimensional CAB IR world of Mikko2. I've really enjoyed using this plugin application. It's a really intuitive package, a lot of great options, a lot of great sounding cabs, and the tweakability is, I think, second to none. There's a couple of three-dimensional things out there on the marketplace, but this is one that really focuses on that speaker-microphone relationship. It does its thing really, really well. Now, if you're using, like I said, amp sims and things like that, I think it's a real opportunity to start to customize your sound a little bit, sort of break out of that preset mentality and start creating your own sound. To me, that's a big part of being a guitar player, is just finding the sound that works for me. And really, those frequencies I hear in my head that are driving me crazy, I love the fact that I can work on that right from source before I get into EQing, things like that. I think it's a really powerful way to mix your guitars and get them sitting in the track just right. So I'm really excited to see where I can take this. Now, don't forget, there is that free option. I'm going to put a link in the description. And also, I've created some presets and even exported some IRs from my setups here. I'm going to make those available on my Patreon. So I'll put a link in the description if you want to check me out on Patreon. But if you really did enjoy this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell. If you want to support this channel, I've got affiliate links. It includes a list of all sorts of things that I have here in the studio, plus some essentials. It kicks a little back to the studio and helps me bring you more content, and I really appreciate the support. I mentioned I'm on Patreon. I have merch. It's all in the description, and I really appreciate that. But the most important thing, check out another video. I've got one waiting for you right here. And remember, you don't need a band to rock and roll. I look forward to seeing you again in another video.